MotoGP is the coolest sport ever, and I'm going to tell you everything you need to know so you can enjoy it as much as I do. MotoGP has the best riders on the fastest bikes racing all over the world, and the rider with the most points at the end of the season is crowned the world champion for that year. So each rider is trying to finish first, or as close as they can in every race, and this is the main thing that you need to follow. There are some really cool riders in MotoGP, and they each have different strengths and personalities, so that leads to a lot of great competition and drama throughout the year. And it's like real talent, real competition, real drama, so it makes it better than other shows. Plus, it happens across 21 beautiful racetracks in 19 different countries. What I like to do before each race is pull out my Nintendo Switch and play the track a few times to get to know it. And then I'll crack a Red Bull or a Monster Energy drink and ride along. So, let me introduce you to some of the best MotoGP riders at the moment. Now, my favourite rider is Aussie Jack Miller. He has never won a world title, but he has won a few races, and he's just like total Aussie bloke. And he's pretty funny and very likeable. So he finished 5th last year, but his teammate, the Italian Pecco Bagnaia, won the world championship. So Pecco came from way behind 2021 world champion, the Frenchman Fabio who led the championship for most of the year, but ended up finishing second after a poor end to the season. Now, I kind of know Enea Bastianini. Actually, you know what? He would have to be my favourite. So I'm a little biased here, but he's from Italy and he's really, really good. So my friend Bastianini finished 3rd in the championship last year, and this year his teammates with Pecco, now Jack, has moved to another team. The Spanish rider Aleix Espargaro was also fast last year, finishing 4th in the championship after years without any wins. Other really important riders to watch out for include Joan Mir from Spain, who was the world champion in 2020, but hasn't had much success since then. This year, however, he's also switched teams and is now teammates with fellow Spaniard Marc Marquez, who won the championship in 2019 and the 5 seasons before that as well. Now, I think Marquez in particular is someone to watch because he's been battling injuries since the start of 2020, but he seems to be fully recovered now and is one of the best riders of all time. Alex Rins, again from Spain, is another really good rider, and I always thought he was the smoothest rider when I first started watching MotoGP. He also won the race in Australia's MotoGP last year. Jack Miller's new teammate, the South African Brad Binder, is another rider to watch out for. He's very consistent, and he handles changes in weather and things like that really well. Jorge Martin from Spain is probably the best at going really fast for one lap, and he holds the record for the fastest lap ever in Australia and the fastest speed ever in MotoGP. So that's the 10 riders I follow most closely, but there are 22 riders in total, and it's easy to get to know them a bit once you start watching, just like any other sport, TV show or movie. Now, the manufacturer or the brand of motorcycle that each rider has is also really important. And like the different riders, each brand has a different strength and weakness. There are now only 5 manufacturers in MotoGP: the European brands Aprilia, Ducati and KTM, and the Japanese bikes Honda and Yamaha. So each manufacturer besides Yamaha has both a factory team and at least one satellite team. Each team has 2 riders and its own colours and major sponsors. Each rider has their own number and it's easy to tell who's who. Now, when I first started watching MotoGP, I actually thought that each team was a separate manufacturer. I thought that Pramac was a type of bike, but Pramac is actually just the satellite team for Ducati. Now, the factory teams typically have the latest technology and more money to play with, so they're usually a bit faster, but not always because they have more experimenting to do. So, for example, Jorge Martin holds a heap of records using the Pramac Ducati, which is basically the factory Ducati from the previous season. Now, last year was actually the first time that Aprilia was competitive in MotoGP. Aleix Espargaro, who I mentioned before, is probably the main rider to look out for. But I also like the Portuguese rider Miguel Oliveira, who is also on the Aprilia this year in the RNF satellite team. So like Aprilia, KTM are relatively new to MotoGP, and this year Jack and Brad are both riding factory KTMs. Ducati have the most satellite teams and therefore the most bikes on the grid, but the factory Ducati riders Pecco, who won last year, and my good friend Bastianini are probably going to be the ones to watch more closely. So Ducati are also known for the fastest bikes on the straight with the most power. The Hondas are also really powerful, and the factory Honda team, or Repsol Honda, have Marquez and Mir this year. So it's going to be really interesting to see that. So finally, fabulous Fabio rides a factory Yamaha, which is notoriously the least powerful of all the bikes on the grid, but it probably has the best cornering speed. Now there is also a manufacturer championship, teams championship, and the independent teams championship. So, knowing that everyone is after points, let's talk about the points and how they are awarded at each race. So each race weekend has the same structure, but the riders are just going around a different track. There are 2 practice sessions on Friday, a free practice session, 2 qualifying sessions, and a short race on Saturday, and a warm-up session and the main race on Sunday. The practice sessions are usually called P1 and P2, and the qualifying sessions are known as Q1 and Q2. Friday is where the riders try different tyres and suspension and gearing setups on their bikes, but they still have to go fast because the 10 fastest riders in the 2 practice sessions jump straight into second qualifying session on the Saturday. The remaining riders then compete in the first qualifying session, with the 2 fastest riders going into the second qualifying session to compete for the top 12 spots. The fastest rider from the second qualifying session gets to start the races from pole position, which is the front of the grid, and the second fastest riders starts second from the front, and then so forth. Now, I say races because this year, for the first time, there are actually 2 races each weekend. A half distance race or a sprint race on the Saturday afternoon, and the normal full distance race that lasts about 45 minutes on the Sunday, like there's always been. Now, the sprint races on Saturday will award half the amount of points as the full race on Sunday. The sprint races have been added to try and make each day of the weekend more exciting, which should lead to higher attendance and more viewers on Friday and Saturday, rather than just the race on Sunday. So winners of the sprint races get 12 points, second gets 9, third 7, and the rider who finishes 9th is the last one to get any points. For the main race, winners get 25 points, second gets 20, third gets 15, with the last points scoring place to be 15th. Like the Olympics, there are podium presentations after each race for the top 3 riders. Now, the only thing I don't really like about MotoGP is it's not free to watch anymore, at least not in Australia. I used to love tuning in to watch Scotty McKinnon, Sammy Charlwood, and Daz Beatty, but now I have to use my friend's KO account to watch it. This does mean, however, that I get to see all of the practice sessions as well if I want. Normally I just watch Q2 and the race, but this year I'll also watch the sprint races and probably some of the practice sessions too. You can also watch with a MotoGP video pass or through a pay TV subscription. Now, the other thing that you should watch is my YouTube channel. I made cool videos of my trip to the Australian MotoGP last year, and I have heaps of other motorbike videos. So please check them out and then join me and my moto friends to watch MotoGP in 2023. Thanks everyone. Bye bye.